Sarah thought she was marrying into a loving family. But the truth her mother-in-law hid for decades was about to tear everything apart. When Sarah finally uncovered the secret, even Dr. Phil froze mid-sentence. And what happened after that changed the marriage forever. The studio lights were warm, almost too warm, as if they were trying to melt the truth out of everyone sitting under them. Sarah sat in the center chair, shoulders tight, hands gripping a small white envelope like it was the only thing keeping her upright. The audience sensed something was wrong before a single word was spoken. Even Dr. Phil noticed it. The stillness, the fear behind her eyes, the way she kept tapping the envelope as if it were alive. Jason sat beside her, confused, worried, and completely unprepared. His knee bounced uncontrollably. He kept glancing at his wife, then at the camera, then at his mother sitting quietly backstage. He had no idea that the next few minutes would shatter everything he believed about his own life. Dr. Phil leaned forward, voice low and steady. "Sarah," he said, "you told my producers that what's inside that envelope could change your husband's entire world. I need you to tell us why." The moment he said it, Sarah's throat tightened. She swallowed hard, blinking rapidly. "I didn't want to bring this here," she whispered. "I didn't want to open this on TV, but I didn't know what else to do." Jason turned toward her, panic creeping into his voice. "Sarah, what's going on? Why would you bring something like that here?" His hand reached for hers, but she didn't take it. That tiny rejection made him flinch as if she'd slapped him. The camera zoomed in on the envelope. A simple, harmless-looking thing. But the truth hiding inside it was anything but harmless. Dr. Phil softened his tone. "When did you first feel something was off? What led to this moment?" Sarah let out a shaky breath. "It started on our wedding day." Her voice cracked. "Jason's mom hugged me, and she whispered something that didn't make sense. I didn't think much of it at the time, but later it became the first red flag." Jason blinked. "What did she say?" Sarah stared at the floor before answering. She said, "Thank you for giving him a life he never would have had." Jason frowned. "What does that even mean?" "That sounds like something emotional, like she was happy for us." Sarah shook her head slowly. "No, the way she said it, it sounded like she wasn't celebrating. It sounded like she was relieved, like she'd been carrying something heavy." The audience murmured softly, the tension thickening. Jason's confusion turned to frustration. "Why wouldn't you tell me that earlier? Why wait until now?" Sarah finally looked him in the eyes, softly, painfully. "Because I didn't want to ruin our first months of marriage. I didn't want to hurt you. But something else happened, something I couldn't ignore." Dr. Phil leaned back slightly, studying her. "And that led you to what you're holding right now?" Sarah nodded. "Yes. This envelope, it has the proof. Proof that your mother hasn't been honest with either of us." Jason inhaled sharply, shaking his head. "What proof? What is she lying about?" Sarah held the envelope up with trembling fingers. "This isn't just about me, Jason. This changes your whole life." Silence washed over the room. Heavy, electric, almost unbearable. Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper, but every microphone in the studio caught it clearly. "Before I open this, you need to understand something. I didn't go looking for this. The truth found me." Jason's chest rose and fell rapidly. His eyes were already glossing with fear. "Sarah, please just tell me what's inside." She looked at the envelope again, then at Dr. Phil, then at her husband. "This," she said softly, "is the beginning of everything your mother never wanted you to know." The envelope trembled in her hands. The truth was seconds away, and nothing would ever be the same. 3 months before the studio lights, before the envelope, before the truth started eating her from the inside, Sarah remembered thinking she had stepped into the perfect family. Linda, Jason's mother, was sweet, soft-spoken, generous. Almost too generous. She insisted on helping with everything. The flowers, the invitations, the guest list, even Sarah's veil. Everyone told Sarah she was lucky to have such a hands-on mother-in-law. But Sarah felt something else, something she couldn't name back then. It started small. A strange moment here. A strange reaction there. Moments that didn't make sense at the time, until later, when they all lined up like pieces of a puzzle she never asked for. One Saturday, while planning the ceremony, Linda invited Sarah over just to talk wedding stuff. Sarah remembered the smell of lavender candles, the way every picture frame in the living room faced inward, almost like they were hiding something. Linda kept steering the conversation toward family traditions, especially one she called the blessing ritual. She insisted it was done privately, only among blood. That word stuck with Sarah. Blood. Why did it matter? Many hooks shift. Later that same day, Sarah excused herself to look for the bathroom. She walked down the hallway and accidentally bumped into a loose picture behind a mirror on the wall. It tilted forward, revealing a photograph tucked behind it. A young boy, no older than 4 or 5, staring straight into the camera with the exact same eyes as Jason. The same hair, the same dimple when he smiled. Sarah froze. Before she could process anything, Linda appeared out of nowhere. Her hand moved quickly, too quickly, as she snatched the photo away and pressed it against her chest. "Oh, that's nothing," she said, laughing nervously. "Just an old picture. Jason doesn't like that one." But the way her fingers trembled told a different story. Sarah apologized, trying not to seem suspicious, but Linda's entire demeanor had shifted. She suddenly became protective, almost guarded, as if one wrong question might crack open a memory she didn't want escaping. That night, Sarah replayed the moment over and over. Why hide a harmless photo of your own child? Why tuck it behind a mirror instead of placing it with the other family portraits? And why did Linda look scared, actually scared, when she grabbed it? But Sarah didn't say anything to Jason. Not yet. She chalked it up to wedding stress, the excuse everyone uses when something feels off but you can't prove it. Life moved forward. Invitations were printed. Dinner tastings were done. Everything looked perfect on the outside. Until the rehearsal dinner. Another emotional shift. Sarah walked into the dining hall and heard Linda whispering to one of her cousins near the corner. She wasn't meant to hear it. She wasn't even meant to be close enough. But the room was quiet, and Linda's voice carried in that sharp, worried tone that cuts through everything. "She can't know before the ceremony," Linda whispered. "It would ruin everything." Sarah stopped mid-step. She. That could have been anyone. But something in Linda's voice made it feel personal. Targeted. Dangerous. The kind of whisper that sits in your chest long after the moment passes. When Linda saw Sarah approaching, she instantly changed her smile. Too wide, too quick, like someone switching masks in a play. "Sweetheart, come taste the centerpieces," she chirped, grabbing Sarah's hand with a grip that felt more like damage control than affection. That night, for the first time, Sarah felt afraid. Not of Linda, but of the unknown. 2 days later, while prepping last-minute wedding details, Sarah's phone buzzed. An unknown number. No contact photo. Just a single text message. Asked her what happened in 1998. No punctuation. No explanation. And no sender name. Sarah's stomach twisted. She reread the message again and again. It was impossible to ignore. Impossible to explain away. What happened in 1998? Why did someone think she needed to know? And why did it connect to Linda? Questions began piling up faster than she could process them. And each one pointed back to a single thing. Something was being hidden from her. Something big. Something that wasn't meant to reach the bride. Sarah didn't reply to the text. She didn't show Jason. She didn't breathe a word of it to anyone. But that message became the moment the ground beneath their marriage started cracking, long before either of them realized it. And the next crack would hit harder than she imagined. The message, asked her what happened in 1998, did something to Sarah. It didn't just plant suspicion. It planted urgency. A quiet, crawling sense that she was standing at the edge of something she wasn't prepared to see. For days, she tried to bury it under wedding plans and color palettes and final fittings, but the question followed her everywhere. It sat at the back of her mind like a ticking clock she couldn't silence. She tried talking to Jason, gently at first, choosing her words the way someone might hold glass, carefully, afraid to break something precious. But every time she hinted that his mother seemed stressed, or secretive, or strangely protective, Jason brushed it off with a tired smile. "She's emotional," he'd say. "She wants everything perfect. That's all." But Sarah's gut told her there was more. People didn't hide pictures behind mirrors for no reason. People didn't whisper about ruining everything unless there was something fragile balancing on a lie. Then came the second message. A week after the unknown text, Sarah was at work, trying to focus on client calls, when a receptionist handed her a brown envelope. "This was dropped off for you," she said casually. No name. The handwriting on the outside was unfamiliar. Neat. Intentional. Inside was a stack of papers, medical forms, printed reports, and a sealed document from a DNA testing company. Her heartbeat stuttered. She looked around the office as if someone might step out from behind a cubicle and shout, "Surprise." But the world stayed painfully normal. Phones ringing, keyboards clacking, people sipping coffee. It made the envelope feel even more unreal. She opened the sealed document, and everything inside her shifted. The report wasn't hers. It wasn't Jason's. It belonged to Linda. At first, Sarah didn't understand what she was looking at. It listed relationships, percentages, probabilities, biological matches. One line at the top made her hands go numb. Potential child match, absent. Biological mother, inconclusive. Sarah's mouth went dry. She flipped the pages, searching for context. A note at the bottom explained that the test had been done recently, 2 months earlier. That alone was chilling. Why would Linda take a DNA test? And why would someone anonymously deliver it to Sarah? Her hands trembled so hard she had to sit down. After hours of staring at the report, Sarah realized something even stranger. There was another page tucked in the back, one she almost missed. It showed a second test, done years earlier, connecting Linda to an unnamed biological mother. The percentages didn't match. They didn't even make sense. It was like two different stories trying to occupy the same space. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept reading the line. Potential child match, absent. Was Linda not Jason's mother? Or was something else going on? If she wasn't his biological mother, why lie? And why lie for decades? Was this what the anonymous message wanted her to uncover? Jason noticed her silence. "You okay?" he asked gently. Sarah hesitated. She wanted to show him. She wanted to hand him the whole truth right there in the living room. But when she imagined the look on his face, shock, betrayal, confusion, her chest tightened. If this wasn't true, she would be hurting him for nothing. If it was true, she needed answers before breaking him with it. So she said, "Yeah, just tired." But her voice trembled. As the wedding day got closer, Linda became even more controlling. She demanded final approval of the guest list, insisting certain relatives didn't need to come. She insisted the officiant meet with her privately. No explanation. She even tried to choose the song for Sarah's walk down the aisle. None of it seemed malicious, just desperate. And desperation always means something. Emotional shift. 2 nights before the wedding, Sarah sat alone at the dining table, staring at the DNA report. She whispered to herself, "Why did you take this test, Linda? What are you hiding?" Then another question bubbled up, a darker one. "Who sent this to me?" She checked the envelope again. No name, no address, nothing traceable. Whoever delivered it didn't want to be found, but they wanted her to know the truth. Sarah reached a breaking point. She couldn't hold this alone anymore. She decided she would confront Linda. Not aggressively, not publicly, but quietly, privately, and face to face. She deserved answers. Jason deserved answers. And the wedding could not move forward with a secret this large sitting under the vows. She rehearsed the conversation in her mind. Why did you take a DNA test? Why did someone send it to me? What happened in 1998? What are you hiding from Jason? Questions that had the power to change lives. As she grabbed her purse, ready to drive to Linda's house, her phone buzzed again. A final message. No sender. No greeting. Just 2 words. Don't trust her. The room seemed to tilt. Because now it wasn't just about the truth. It was about danger. Sarah drove to Linda's house with her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Every streetlight seemed brighter. Every shadow seemed longer. Every mile toward that house felt like she was walking deeper into something she couldn't turn back from. The last text message, "Don't trust her," echoed in her mind with each passing second. She kept asking herself, don't trust Linda? Or don't trust the person warning her? Linda's house sat quietly at the end of a cul-de-sac, porch light glowing softly. Too softly, like a place rehearsing innocence. Sarah stepped out of her car and felt a cold breeze wrap around her, even though it wasn't a cold night. Her legs trembled as she walked up the stairs and knocked on the door. It opened almost immediately, as if Linda had been waiting. "Sarah," she said warmly, too warmly. "Come in, sweetheart. I just made tea." Sarah stepped inside and instantly felt the heaviness. Like the air wasn't just air, it was history, pain, secrets, the kind that sink into walls and carpets and photographs. The living room was spotless, almost staged, and on the coffee table were 2 cups of tea already poured, steam rising slowly. Linda sat first. She folded her hands, studying Sarah with eyes that looked tired but ready. "You brought something with you," Linda said quietly. It wasn't a question. Sarah placed the DNA report on the table without speaking. The documents fluttered slightly, like even the paper was nervous. Linda didn't reach for them. She just closed her eyes and whispered, "I knew this day would come." The room went still. When Linda finally looked at the papers, her face didn't show shock. It showed surrender. Her hands shook as she picked up the test, her thumb brushing the line that said potential child match, absent. She exhaled shakily. "I didn't think anyone would ever see this," she said. Sarah's voice tightened. "Why did you take a DNA test? And why was a copy sent to me?" Linda swallowed hard. "Because someone threatened to expose everything unless I proved something." Her voice cracked. "I took the test to stop them, but I guess it wasn't enough." Sarah leaned forward. "Expose what?" Linda's eyes filled, but she didn't wipe the tears. "Jason was never supposed to know," she whispered. "Not for me. Not from anyone." That sentence hit Sarah like a blow. Linda placed a trembling hand on the papers. "Jason is adopted," she said softly. "I raised him as my own. But biologically, I'm not his mother." Sarah felt her stomach drop. Hearing it out loud was different than reading it. It had weight, gravity. "But that's not the part one buried," Linda continued. "The real secret, the one from 1998, she paused, breath shaking. "That's the one that destroyed our family." The emotional shift was sharp, the kind that rewires a room instantly. Sarah's voice softened. "Linda, what happened in 1998? Linda closed her eyes again, as if the memory burned. "Jason's birth mother was my sister," she said. "My younger sister, Emily." Sarah gasped quietly. Linda continued. She struggled. With addiction. With men who hurt her. With a life she couldn't pull herself out of. When she got pregnant, she panicked. She told me she couldn't raise him. She begged me to take him." Sarah tried to process it. "So, you adopted him to protect him?" Linda nodded, tears falling openly now. "I promised Emily I would raise him. I promised him a stable life. And when she died, I promised myself he'd never feel abandoned." Silence filled the room like a thick fog. Sarah felt a strange pang of empathy, unexpected, confusing. Because for the first time, Linda didn't look manipulative or controlling. She looked broken, like a woman who'd carried someone else's pain for too long. But there was still more. Sarah could feel it. "Why hide the test?" she asked softly. Linda's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because someone found out. Someone who knew the truth about Emily. Someone who threatened to destroy everything." She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "Your wedding, it scared them. Because they knew once you joined the family, the truth might slip." Sarah's breathing slowed. "Who knew, Linda? Who else has known this all these years?" That was the question that split the room open. Linda looked up, eyes red, and whispered, "Everyone except Jason." The floor seemed to vanish beneath Sarah. "His uncle knew. My cousin knew. Even the officiant. Emily confided in him before she died. They all agreed to keep the secret." Sarah felt anger rising, not at the adoption, but at the conspiracy of silence. "He deserves to know," she said firmly. "He deserves the truth." Linda broke down then, full sobs, body shaking. "I was afraid," she cried. "I was afraid he'd look at me differently. Afraid he'd stop calling me mom. Afraid losing the truth would mean losing him." Sarah didn't know whether to comfort her or collapse herself. The truth was painful, tragic, complicated, so much bigger than she ever imagined. But she knew one thing. This secret wouldn't stay buried anymore. She stood to leave, clutching the report. At the door, she turned back. "I'm telling him," she said gently. "I'm not doing it to hurt you. But he deserves to understand who he is." Linda nodded weakly. "I know," she whispered. "I just pray he forgives me." As Sarah stepped into the night air, her phone buzzed again. A new message. Just one line. "She didn't tell you everything." Sarah froze, because now she knew the truth was bigger than even Linda admitted. And Chapter 5 would bring the final blow. When the cameras came back from commercial, the studio felt different. Heavier, quieter, as if everyone inside sensed that the truth had finally cornered the family, and there was no path forward except straight through it. Jason sat frozen in his chair, his breathing uneven, his eyes locked on the envelope Sarah held in her lap. He hadn't said a word in several minutes. Not because he didn't want to, but because he couldn't form the shape of language around what he suspected was coming. Dr. Phil leaned forward again, but this time more slowly, like he was approaching someone standing on the edge of a cliff. "Jason," he said softly, "we're here to help you understand everything, not shock you for entertainment. I need you to prepare yourself." Jason swallowed. His voice barely came out. "Just tell me." Sarah's fingers tightened around the envelope. When she opened it, the papers inside made the faintest rustle, yet it sounded thunderous in the silent studio. She took out the DNA results, the adoption papers, and the second page confirming the biological inconsistencies. Her hand shook. Her voice trembled. But she met Jason's eyes with a determination fueled not by anger, but by love. "This is why I brought it here," she said. "I knew if I told you privately, you might think I was exaggerating, or that I misunderstood, or that I was trying to turn you against your mom. I didn't want you to think I was the enemy. So I brought it here where the truth can't be twisted." Jason blinked rapidly. "What is it?" he whispered. Sarah placed the documents in his hands. At first, he didn't understand what he was reading. He scanned the lines like someone trying to make sense of a language they've never seen before. But then his eyes stopped. His mouth parted. His whole face changed. The words "potential child match," "absent," landed like a punch to the chest. His breath broke. A sound escaped him, something between a gasp and a sob. Dr. Phil passed him a tissue, but Jason didn't move. He was stuck somewhere between disbelief and devastation. My mother," he whispered. Dr. Phil nodded gently. "Linda is your mother in every way that counts. But biologically, no. And she's kept that from you." Jason's shoulders collapsed inward. He pressed his palms into his eyes as tears spilled down his cheeks. "She lied," he said, voice cracking. "My whole life she lied." Sarah reached out and finally took his hand. "She thought she was protecting you," she whispered. "But you deserve to know who you are." Just then, Linda entered from backstage. The audience murmured. She walked slowly, like every step added a year to her life. She sat beside her son, her hands trembling violently. "Jason," she whispered. He didn't look at her. Not yet. Not until Dr. Phil spoke. "Linda, your son has seen the documents. He knows the truth." Linda let out a broken breath. "I never wanted to hurt you," she cried. "I loved you from the moment Emily placed you in my arms. I promised her I'd protect you, that you'd never feel abandoned, that you'd grow up knowing stability, not chaos." Jason finally turned to her, his eyes red, filled with anguish. "But why lie?" he asked. "Why let the whole family know except me? Why let me live my entire life believing something that wasn't true?" Linda covered her face. "Because I was afraid," she said between sobs. "Afraid you'd look at me differently. Afraid you'd think you came from brokenness instead of love. Afraid you'd push me away." Her confession slowed everything down. Even Sarah's anger softened a little. But Jason wasn't done. His voice quivered. "There's something else," he said. "I saw the text messages Sarah showed me backstage. Someone warned her. Someone knew. Who else has been lying to me?" Linda hesitated. "Too long." Jason's jaw tightened. "Answer me." Linda looked down. "Your uncle, your cousin, the officiant, even your grandmother before she passed. They all knew." Jason recoiled like he'd been hit. The betrayal wasn't just from one person. It was from an entire world he trusted. Dr. Phil leaned in. Jason, this is an identity crisis. It shakes your foundation, but it doesn't erase who raised you, who loved you, or who you've become. Jason wiped his tears. I don't know what to feel, he whispered. I feel like I've been living someone else's life. Sarah rubbed his back gently. You're still you, she said. None of that changes. But the biggest moment came when Dr. Phil asked the final, defining question, one that silence seemed to brace for. Jason, he said softly, what do you want to do with the truth now that you finally have it? Jason looked at his mother, really looked at her, saw her trembling hands, saw her guilt, saw her fear, saw the woman who raised him, fed him, protected him, and lied to him. His chest rose and fell slowly. And then he exhaled, a long, shaking, heartbreaking exhale, the kind that marks the end of one life and the beginning of another. Everything cut to black. Sometimes the truth doesn't break a family. It reveals who's strong enough to rebuild one. If this story touched you, share it with someone who might be facing their own hidden truth. And if you've lived through something similar, your experience might help another viewer feel less alone. Tell your story in the comments. Someone out there needs it.